Hey everyone, my name is Sam Collentine, Director of Operations and Meteorologist at OpenSnow, and I am so pumped today to be joined by Chris Davenport, one of my heroes in the pro skiing world. Been following you for a long time. How's it going, Chris?
Good, Sam. It's going good. I've had a kind of a busy fall, running around doing things with sponsors and brands, and it's been really fun. I missed a bit of skiing last week. I was on the East Coast. I was in Boulder, and then I was at the World Cup ski races in Beaver Creek, which were great. And got back home to Aspen, got on the hill this morning, which was really nice. And now I'm kind of frantically packing to go to BC because we're chasing snow, man. You know, you guys know the drill. You're
Yeah,
you actually have one of your one of your forecasts is like chase snow, right? So
yep.
that's one of the daily snows, and that's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. And for everyone, we're recording this in early December 2021. And if you've unless you've been living under a rock, there's literally no snow across the entire Western United States. It's mostly been up in southern Canada and into southern Alaska and into Canada. And but thankfully, as we're speaking, we have snow moving into the Alps because Chris and I both live in the Roaring Fork Valley here in Colorado, and we're looking better over the next few weeks. So that's good news ahead.
That is good news ahead. I'm literally looking out my office window right now at Mount Sopris. I can still see the summit of East Sopris, but not west. The snow's coming in. So, tonight doesn't look big, but the pattern's changing. That's what we need. We need to get out of this,
Yep.
this sort of mega block high pressure over the west, where it's just been so warm and so dry. And we think about this all the time as recreationists, as skiers. We want the snow because we want to ski. But boy, I think a lot about it in terms of like the American West and water supply for communities and for agriculture and just the health and well-being of the Colorado River Basin, things like that. It's and of course we can't not mention wildfires and smoke. Someone mentioned to me this summer, like, oh yeah, now we have ski season and smoke season. And I grew up never having smoke. I mean, like I remember even as recently as just maybe 5 years ago, if you smelled smoke in the air, it was kind of like, ooh, wow, that's interesting. Where's that coming from? And now it's like, 2 out of the 3 months of the summer. It's crazy.
Yeah, and as many of you know, one of the products that Dav has been using a lot and kind of sharing a lot is our smoke forecast product that we have on our summer service Open Summit. And sadly, that's been it's been used more often than not the past couple of years. So hopefully, we'll see what the next few summers bring, of course. But yeah, it's just.
I'll just mention quickly like how I was using that. This summer I was doing a lot of 14er guiding or just mountain guiding in general, and some bike races, some gravel bike races, and every single race and or peak that I was on, literally every one was affected by smoke. So I was using the Open Summit app to look at the air quality index and look at the plume of smoke, because the maps are so visually rich, to see if one, it was even safe to do it, and two, how bad it was going to be. And actually over Labor Day weekend, we were up in Sun Valley at Rebecca's Private Idaho, that gravel race, and they almost canceled the final day because of the smoke. And so 102-mile gravel race in the dust with smoke, man, I was wrecked for like 4 days. It was just like too much.
Coughing up along there. Yeah.
Ugh, yeah, it was brutal. But these are the things that we have to look at. Unfortunately, we have tools now to be able to look at that, because if this type of thing was happening 20 years ago, we really wouldn't have had the forecasting, and we certainly wouldn't have had the mobile apps we can just open up and kind of have this information in our hands.
Right. Well, on that note, we'll move back into the snow world. And this will be the first of a talking snow series that I'll be hosting. And the first question I just want to get at is, tell me about your deepest powder day ever. I mean, where was it? All the details.
Yeah, my deepest powder day ever. I've had some really deep powder days. There's a couple that stand out. One was just 2 years ago in Japan, of course. We had one particular day in Niseko on Mount Annapuri, the peak above the Niseko resorts. where we were just lined up perfectly with, I think, a northwest flow across the Sea of Japan, cold temperatures, and just a really good moisture plume. It had been really good in the days leading up to this, kind of 10 inches to a foot a day. And down at the house, we're right at the base of the mountain. We had about, I guess, another 10 inches or a foot on the car that morning. I get up early and I do a guide meeting, and we kind of figure out like what happens the night before. And looking at some of the data on OpenSnow, and talking with some other local guides, I could tell that it was going to be like really, really good. So we were rushing to get out of the house and get in line and get up the mountain, and went traversing out the east face gates. I think it's gate 3 or whatever. Yep. And I was like, I think I was the first person out there. There might have been a couple people ahead of me, but then I quickly passed them on the traverse. And I basically got to the point where like I couldn't move. It was waist deep. It was probably 10 degrees Fahrenheit out, so really cold. The snow water equivalent, I mean, it was probably like 18-1 or something. I mean, it was super dry. And myself and my 5, I think, clients worked our asses off to get as far out as we could to get away from people. And then when we dropped in, you could only go straight. You couldn't turn, because if you turned, you were going to bog down. And it was a real serious concern to have, burial. Not out there. It's not steep enough really out there to have avalanches. I mean, I guess in a certain scenario you could, but it just snows so consistently that you don't get that kind of buildup of weak layers. But we would go, I went first, and I would put a track in straight, and then the clients would kind of go on that track until they got some speed, and then they'd go off and try to make some turns. And we had a couple falls, because it's, when it's so deep, you get caught up and your skis get grabbed, and it's not something that, people are used to. This is waist deep to just, hitting you in the chest, snorkeling over your head. You have to cover your mouth because you're going to choke. And so from a guiding perspective, it was awesome to deliver that kind of experience, but also really scary because it was just, like you could just suffocate from just falling over. So that was one day. Another day that comes to mind was kind of similar, and I was in Tahoe, and it was one of these sort of Tahoe mega dumps, 5 feet overnight. Just like I was at my sister's house in Sugar Bowl, right on the Donner Summit or Divide there. It's a place that's pretty notorious for getting a lot of snow, and we got locked into this pattern. It was over Christmas, maybe like 6-7 years ago. And we probably had 3 feet at the house from between like closing of the chair and the next morning, maybe like afternoon and the next morning. And then when we got up, they had just basically groomed like a couple groomers, but not like wall to wall, just like a couple widths of a cat. And at the time, so 6-7 years ago, my kids and my sister's kids were smaller. They weren't skiing deep POW. And so we're like, okay, guys, we're going to like ski down this nice groomer. And if you want to like zip off onto the side, you can do that, but come back out because it's, it's so deep. And we're coming down this groomed run, and there'd been a few people up before us. And I kind of like look ahead and I see something off the edge of the groomer in the POW, like a dark color. And as they get closer, I realize it's a person. And this person had not been able to see the difference or see the contrast between the groomer and the POW, and it caught the POW, obviously spun around, went head first in, and was buried and was not moving. And I just quickly grabbed the back of her jacket, turned out to be a older woman, yanked her out of the snow, gave her a big smack on the back, and she kind of coughed. And fortunately was still breathing. I didn't have to do CPR, but this is an example of what can happen when it's super deep. We continued to ski for another hour with the kids, and then they wanted to go have hot chocolate, and the parents went and skied some really, really awesome deep POW, not Sierra Cement, just deep blower. So that was a good one. And then, gosh, I guess I should say, since I'm going up to British Columbia in about 30 hours, the day after tomorrow, I have skied some incredibly deep days in the Monashees where literally the same thing is going on. You're skiing with a partner, you're making noises so you can kind of see each other. And in the deep timber of these old growth trees in British Columbia, when you've got a 35-degree pitch, and the trees are, 10 feet, 20 feet around, whatever, that's one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. And I'm really, really hoping that that happens this coming week. And it's looking quite good. I don't know if it's going to be, chest deep, but it's definitely going to be knee deep. And that's a great experience also.
Yeah.
That's a long answer. But I've done a lot of skiing, so I had to kind of sort it out.
Of course you've had a long career, and, Japan, the Sierra of California, and up in British Columbia, three of the kind of hero zones of the world for snow.
Yeah.
And I want to come back to that in a little bit and talking about the differences around the world from a skiing and snow perspective.
That'd be great.
But to kind of take a step back, you've been a pro skier for a couple of decades now. How has your life and career evolved from when you won the World Free Skiing Championships back in the late 90s to kind of where you are now?
Yeah, that's a great question, because listen, I think we all evolve as people and professionals, whether you're a professional, business person or your interests just always change. And so, yeah, I started out as a ski racer from New England, from New Hampshire. I came out to the University of Colorado in Boulder to ski race at CU. Ski racing was great. My parents were into the White Mountains, the big mountains of New Hampshire. So we skied Tuckerman Ravine, and we went on hut trips, and I was a Knowles student, and I was doing a lot of rock climbing. So I generally loved all the, outdoor sports. And was trying to be good at all of them. So even though I was ski racing at CU, that first winter I was there, I got Lou Dawson's Guide to the 14ers, and I started skiing 14ers. We were climbing all over the West. So very early on, I knew that I wanted to be kind of a well-rounded mountain sports athlete. And then in terms of becoming a professional, I had gone to a race in high school against Shane McConkey. And then we had gone to Boulder together as freshmen, and we're on the ski team together. And so we'd become close friends, and he dropped out of CU and started doing these, early extreme skiing contests, or free skiing contests, as we call them now, the Free Ride World Tour. And in 94, he called me up and he's like, "Hey, Dav, you should come down to Crested Butte for the US Extremes. It's super fun. I did it last year." And I said, "I don't know what that is, but if you're telling me it's fun, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to come." And I went and met Shane down there, and Kent Kreitler and Dean Cummings and Dave Swanwick and Doug Coombs and Kim Reichhelm, and just, all these early legends of the sport, and competed. And it was so fun because I had a great mind for competing. I'd been in the starting gate most of my life as a ski racer. And, the canvas of free skiing is go ski wherever you want and just make it look good. Ski fast, ski hard, catch air, show off the judges. So that set me on a path of, 14, 13 years of free skiing competition, which I loved. And then that led to making movies as well. After I won the World Extremes in 96 in Valdez, I got invited that summer to shoot with Warren Miller. And then that following winter to shoot with Matchstick and Warren Miller again. And at that point, the train had left the station and I was going, full gas into being a pro. But to answer your question of how it's changed, in those early days of contests and filming, it was all about me. It's kind of selfish. I wanted to win. I wanted to have the best ski movie segment. I wanted to build my brand. I wanted to make more money. And we were having a great time doing it, but I wasn't giving back. I wasn't really doing anything to help others. I mean, I kind of started learning how to be a guide and things, but once I quit competing in 2007 and it slowly started slowing down the filming thing, and just got older, I realized that being an activist and standing for things and using your skiing or ski mountaineering to tell stories that help others, doing good, is actually a lot more fun. And so I've basically had this sort of transition from athlete to activist, if you will. And so while I'm still a professional athlete, everything I do now surrounds some level of sustainability story or doing good by community. Literally every single sponsor that I work with the exception of a couple, is doing great things in that space, either with their supply chain or recycled materials or renewable energy. And I kind of that's the bar for me now, is to kind of hopefully keep skiing, keep winter cool, keep it snowy, and not pass along a problem to the next generation that was bigger than the one that our parents passed to us. So I really, I think like when I'm 95 years old or however the age is, and I'm taking my last run, I'm not going to think about those free ski competition wins or X Games medals or movie segments. I'm going to think about, hey, did I make a difference in the community? Did I leave the world a better place? Or at the very least, did I try? So that's been my kind of evolution. And, I'm still fairly young. I mean, you never know where I am 20 years from now in terms of like that headspace, but I just love giving back, and I love partnering. I should mention you guys, what you guys are doing in the sustainability space with OpenSnow is really incredible as well. So like having these conversations and building, like we talk about the outdoor space and the amount of money that's spent in the outdoors in the United States. It's a huge group of people, and if everybody got on board and kind of voted their conscience and voted the environment, man, we could do amazing things out here.
Yeah, it's you had an incredible career, and I think one of the things that I'll add to the show notes is the Red Bull series Faces of Dav. It kind of gives everyone the full evolution of how you've gone throughout your career. Kind of one, and on that, how do you think your risk taking as a guide and as being in the mountains, how has that evolved to having kids now to where you were back in at the start?
I love that question, and I do get it fairly often from people. And it really I started getting that question once I had children. People are like, "Oh man, you're a parent now. You have kids. Like, are you taking less risk, or how do you manage that?" And it took me a while to kind of figure out what the real answer was. But the real answer was that I'm taking the same amount of risks, but I'm much better at managing the risk. I'm taking more time. I'm spending more time to understand whatever the data that I can get. I'm doing more homework. I'm just more organized. And so I guess that's just, you're more professional. You're not only doing it for yourself anymore, as I was talking about, you transition from it being about you. It's about my family. I want to make money as a professional athlete to support them and give them a great life. But I also have, more to lose now. No family wants to lose their parent or kid or whatever it might be. So I just began thinking about it in a more professional way and getting more education and reading more. And one analogy I like to use is like, if you're a race car driver and you have children, do you drive slower? No, you don't. You're a race car driver. Like, your job is to get out there and drive fast. My job as a professional skier is to get out there and be the best that I can be. Whether it's on a film screen or with clients as a guide or, with sponsors, developing product, like, work hard. And so from the risk management thing, listen, I'm not jumping off 100-foot cliffs anymore. And I am really happy skiing low angle terrain here in Colorado when we have avalanche hazard, which is much of the winter usually. So I like to wait until the spring here in Colorado for what we would call more green light conditions, when the stability is more predictable, days are longer, we're in a freeze thaw cycle, and then we can get up and ski big things. But this time of year, December, January, February, I ski small things and they're generally low angle, and I'm still totally happy, totally happy. And I'm out there with friends. For me, skiing it's not about the extreme. It's not about the speed, and it's not about the gnar. It's just about connection with nature and being outdoors and getting like physical exercise, getting fit and being strong. But I don't need that. Like, man, I need to ski a steep line right now. Like, I can do that in the spring, and that's enough.
Yep.
So,
and that's a great answer. And that kind of leads me into when you're guiding clients now in North America, Japan, Europe, even South America. I know it's been a couple of years now, sadly. Can you just kind of talk about the differences in the skiing and snow in North America versus maybe in Europe and Japan? I know there's a lot of people maybe think, big glaciers in Europe, or, just endless pow in Japan. Can you kind of talk about that and how you kind of work when you're guiding, how you kind of talk through that with your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's one of the most amazing things about skiing and snowboarding is that it's different everywhere you go. You know, a basketball court's a basketball court, a tennis court's a tennis court, a football field is a football field. These are games. You know, we're out in the mountains, and it's different everywhere you go, and it's different every day you go, right? Like, although I will say, like, the last, 2 weeks in Colorado, it's been pretty consistently warm and dry and just groomers. But typically things change. There's, I can't remember the statistic, but there's something like 1 million different snowflakes that have been studied or something like that. So again, everywhere in the world, all 7 continents, and I luckily have skied all 7 continents. It's unique and it's amazing. And so I like to look for places that have these unique meteorological setups and unique mountain ranges and terrain setups that offer like a unique ski experience. Japan is unique because it's an island in the middle, not in the middle of the ocean, but it's got 600 miles of open ocean to its west. And to the west of that is Siberia, where there's a lot of cold continental air mass. And that comes over the Sea of Japan, lifts a ton of moisture, and then just drops it on the Japanese mountains, especially in Hokkaido, the North Island. And it's just one of the world's greatest snow engines that exists. There's a couple other ones, like the Black Sea of Russia near Sochi, where the Olympics were, is another area that has a lot of cold air, a big mass of water, and then big mountains to the east. And so that rises up and dumps on Krasnaya Polyana and Rosa Couture, these resorts in the Caucasus Mountains east of Sochi. And when that place turns on, it's some of the best powder skiing in the world. Interestingly enough, you have in South America, where I've worked for 20 years in Chile, you've got like 5,000 miles of open ocean to the west, but there's no cold air. So you're missing one of the key ingredients that drive snow. And so you can get big snowstorms. And historically, they have gotten huge snowstorms in the Andes. But in the last 10 years, that hasn't really happened. It's been more of a drought situation, less cold air, more warm water, I think, is contributing to that. So we haven't seen the same, what we call the Santa Rosa, these famous storms that'll drop in some cases 10, 15 feet of snow over 72 hours. So that seems to be changing. Then you get down south to Antarctica, and it's really cold, but it's quite dry down there. Even though you're surrounded by ocean, you're at sea level. You don't quite have the lifting mechanisms that are necessary for a ton of powder snow. But that's good. You're so far away from a hospital or any kind of rescue. You wouldn't want to deal with like ultra deep pow and avalanche hazard down there. You got crevasses to deal with anyway. So that's a glaciated continent. So your main concern in Antarctica, which is, by the way, Antarctica and northern Norway and Svalbard, Greenland, places like that, those are the coolest places to ski because of the terrain and the glaciated nature of it. And I'll finish with the Alps. The Alps are amazing. You've got not only incredible culture, across northern Spain and France, Switzerland, Austria, Italy, and even into the eastern countries. But they do get a lot of snow. And if you were to, for instance, go on your deepest forecasts on OpenSnow right now, and we're in early December, you would see that the Alps of Europe are getting a ton of snow, which is cool. And there's and actually there was a big avalanche accident there yesterday, which was sad to hear, kind of the first one of the winter that we've heard about globally. 8 people buried. But this is going to happen early season when you get a ton of snow. And so I love the Alps for all those reasons. You can ski, there's resorts everywhere, there's lifts everywhere, there's incredible infrastructure, and you can have an amazing ski experience without really having to ski in the backcountry. There's like easy off-piste that's close to the resorts that you can get guided on. And then if you want to step up to bigger glaciated things, you can do that. But most people, there's much more of a guiding culture over there than there is here. And I guess one more thing, I skied right as the pandemic was kind of coming over the world. My friends Ted and Christy and I were skiing in Morocco. And that was our seventh continent. Yep, we were in the Atlas Mountains of northern Morocco. Yep. It was a kind of a dry winter, but we had some really great skiing, some great corn, great kind of windboard, and just like you're skiing in North Africa, looking out over the Mediterranean in the far distance, and culturally it was really cool. That's a place I can't wait to get back to. So yeah, I mean, everywhere in the world is amazing. Everywhere in the world is unique. And I've spent a good part of my life, going to these places, and they're just wonderful.
Yeah. And then, as you're guiding and kind of exploring these areas, what tools are you using, and how are the forecasts and what we provide in OpenSnow? How does that kind of change your thinking when you're planning your days ahead?
I guess I'll say that you just have more information at your fingertips than ever before. 10, 15 years ago, it was kind of, there was forecasting. It wasn't as digital as it is now, and certainly wasn't on your smartphone as much as it is now. But you could get on the internet, and you could, wherever you were in the world, you could find a good weather forecast. You might not have been able to find snow data or avalanche forecasting. But now it's basically at your fingertips. As I said at the beginning of this conversation, like wherever you are in the world, the information is there. There's so many users that are out there sharing observations, getting real-time data. There's more sensors, for whether it's weather stations or avalanche and snow sensors out there. SnowTel, for instance, giving us real-time information about where the good skiing is, or where it's snowed a lot. And where it's not good, either because there's not enough snow or because it's really, really dangerous. Organizations like the Colorado Avalanche Information Center here do an incredible job at trying to communicate what is happening in the mountains in real time, so that people can, get the forecast. Is one of the 5 parameters of what we call know before you go. And so, I literally wake up in the morning. It kind of annoys my wife, but before I even get out of bed in the winter when it's actually snowing, the first thing I do is click on OpenSnow or open the app and start clicking around and looking at what's happened. Your partners, Joel Grotz and Alan Smith and many others are posting updates usually around 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. And that's when we need them. And so that's really timely and great. And sometimes there's updates later on in the day. So I'm looking at those and reading those first. And then I'm going down to make coffee, and I'm thinking already in my mind about what I just read. I'll also, of course, I'll look at the avalanche forecast, both as an overlay on the OpenSnow map, but I'm also going to read the CAIC, the specific zone forecast, depending on where I'm at or wherever I'm at in the country or the world even. And just kind of like building a picture in my mind. And then I'll start thinking about the day and my clients and what their expectations are, what my expectations are. Do I need to adjust them? Because I probably was thinking about this, the day before or days before. Do I need to tweak the plan, come up with a plan B, or am I still feeling good to go? I might hop in the car, head into the mountain and make a call or two to a couple other guides. Like, hey, what are you guys thinking? This is what I saw. Here locally in the Roaring Fork Valley, I work for Aspen Expeditions, and we have a morning guide meeting, and we have our own app where we're updating what our plans are, where we're going, who we have, plan Bs, rescue gear, just all of that kind of stuff. So I'm literally going through like a whole process before I'm even out the door. And then, maybe adjusting it, maybe not, but the amount of information that I can consume in a fairly short period of time is actually pretty amazing. And it's because of, groups or organizations like you guys and like CAIC and others that provide this. It's so easy and it looks great. And the more you play with like the premium service on OpenSnow, the more it's really fun to play with it. And you're like, wow, I love all this information. Even if I'm not going out skiing, I'm kind of looking at it anyway, because it's like so well presented.
Right. That's great. Thank you so much for that. And one thing the last thing I want to end on is we've been talking a lot about aspirational, chasing snow around the world. But I think one of the more important things that we need to start thinking about is kind of like getting new people into the sport. And what they should be doing. And where do you kind of point to people for that kind of like getting started resources for skiing and kind of just snow in general and being in the mountains in general? Yeah,
that's a really great question. And it's so important to have some experience under your belt before you kind of start heading into the backcountry, into bigger mountains. I mean, I grew up skiing on a ski resort. I didn't go into the backcountry until I was probably 13 or 14 when my dad first hiked me up to Tuckerman Ravine, and that was amazing and blew my mind. But at that point, I was already a ski racer. I was already a really good skier, so I had the skills to do the actual skiing. I just didn't know much about what else was going on around me.
Right.
And so that took time. And so, yeah, get the building blocks, build the foundation on the ski area, snowboarding or skiing, just getting your general basic skills down of, riding blues, blacks, carving, getting on steeper terrain, getting in mixed terrain, because out in the backcountry, the snow could be changing based on your aspect or your elevation all the time. So you want to get comfortable with just riding in a lot of different conditions. And you can do that on most ski areas. Once you've done that and you're looking to get into the backcountry, here's a couple of great things you can do. First off, get your kit, get your touring ski boots, your alpine touring boots, get your touring bindings and a lightweight ski setup, and start skinning on the ski area. Most ski areas in the West or in the United States, not all, but most, will allow for uphilling, as we call it, skinning up the ski area, where you can get comfortable putting your skins on, ripping them off, with getting in and out of your bindings, dealing with your layers, your kit, your food, your hydration, all of these things that you're really going to need when you're out in the backcountry. Once you're comfortable with all that and you can transition quickly, that's a great base for then taking that into the backcountry. Now, when you're ready to go into the backcountry and you've done all these skills, you're ready, you should take an Avalanche course or two. They're not only going to be great from an educational standpoint for learning about what to look for, the signs and signals and the clues out there in the snowpack and the weather, but they're also great places to meet people. When you go on a course in your own region, whether it's here in Colorado, the Front Range or the Elk Range or the San Juans, whatever it might be, you're going to probably meet people that are in the exact same situation as you, trying to get out in the backcountry and wanting to learn more. And that's a great place to meet partners. Another great place is most of the guide services in Colorado and in the West. They'll do like intro to backcountry days where they'll take people, a group of 7 or 8 with 2 guides, and do a ski tour and kind of walk you through what a safe and responsible day in the backcountry looks like, and what we as professionals look for when it comes to just having fun but being safe, because we want to come back at the end of every day. And just like, for me, the biggest thing is managing expectations. And I mentioned this earlier, I don't go out in the mountains to just crush it every day. I go out there to just have fun, and that might be something chill and mellow, and that might be something, really aggressive, but Mother Nature dictates that, not me. Mother Nature tells us when we can go ski rad lines and when we can ski deep pow, not me. I just base my decision on what, nature does. And thankfully with the help of, apps and like yours. So I think that's kind of a primer of how to get involved, meeting people. It's funny, like, it's really cool. Most local ski shops nowadays have some sense of community around them, especially the backcountry shops. You go there and you start talking to the kids on the floor and the techs and the shop guys and everybody. And, they want to share information too. And they want to meet people. And sometimes they'll have, message boards up there and like conditions, and, they'll do nights with slideshows and stuff. And that's also a great place to meet people. And because having good partners is one of the other essential things in the know before you go sort of campaign or ideas. Like you got to have good people with you, someone who's going to save your ass, you're going to save theirs. And when things go wrong, that it's a solid team. I've been in a couple avalanches, fortunately never buried under the snow, but as I was rocketing down the mountain, getting completely tumbled, in my mind, I was like, I know my team's got it. I know they're coming. I'm good. I'm just going to fight to stay on top. And I know I'll be fine because I trusted in the people that I was with. And that's a really good feeling. And if you're getting in a little slide and you're like, I don't know if my friend's going to find me, that's a really bad place to be. So, unfortunately, or depending how you want to look at it, skiing is the most amazing activity in sport. And when I say skiing, I mean skiing and snowboarding in the mountains. But it can also be tragic. And we lose people every year. Last year in Colorado, there was 12 fatalities. And several of those accidents involved multiple people. And that's super sad and scary, and it impacts communities in a major way. And so we all as a community, you, me, everybody, need to work together to try to prevent these accidents and try to message around safety, especially when the conditions are not appropriate for backcountry skiing or ski mountaineering.
Right.
And that happens
Right.
a lot. You know, there's a lot of times where it's just red light, don't go. Go to your ski
Right.
area, just rip some groomers, get in the NASTAR course and work on your ski racing skills, whatever. You
Right.
know, but you just got to be comfortable with saying no sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that couldn't be more true. And it's just like, listen to the mountains, see what they're saying. And if it's time to play, get out there. And if it's not, then just, there's another day for that. And
live to ski another day is for sure.
Yeah.
Longevity is great. You know, man, I mean, I've made it this far. I'm not going to screw it up now. I want to be an old skier, not a bold skier. Because there's no old bold skiers. I guess that came from that might have come from base jumping or flying or something. But
one of the things we were on a bike ride this past summer that when you were in the Himalaya, I forget when that was, and you were kind of feeling a little nervous, and your partner was.
Oh yeah.
It was just like, this is what it's all about. And
yeah, that's a great story.
When the mountains are out there telling you it's time to come play, and you feel a little nervous, that's a good thing. I think it's good to get ourselves uncomfortable. And so, just kind of listen to the conditions and see what everything's saying. That's great. So this has been awesome. Where could everyone find you, and any kind of last notes for us?
Yeah, Sam, thanks so much. This has been awesome. And I as you can tell, I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about skiing and mountains and giving back. As I said earlier, like it makes me feel really good if I could mentor somebody and help them out. So if you have questions and you want to reach out to me, I would love to talk to you. I'm Steep Skiing on Instagram and Twitter. Chris at steepskiing.com is my email. Don't share it with the rest of the world, but like if you want to get in touch and talk anything backcountry or equipment or whatever, I love sharing my experiences and expertise with people. And just be safe this winter. And I have this like mantra that or I guess it's like a saying, I call it the 10-second rule. When I'm standing on top of a mountain and I'm about to drop in, or I'm checking out of a hotel room and I'm about to close the door, I take a moment, 10 seconds, and I look and I think, I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Did I leave anything? Did I forget anything? Am I buckled? It's just like, take some time to make sure that you don't make a mistake, because sometimes little mistakes can be big mistakes. And just being really intentional out there in the mountains goes a really long way.
That's great. Okay. Awesome. Yep. Well, thanks again, Dev. And see you on the mountains.
Thanks, everybody. See you out there. Be safe.